Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are here today because we are looking at this article from The Lever. Yeah. Will Harris vibes deliver Walz policy? Now remember, point of this, Harris is a very centrist, straight-laced type of candidate. Walz, while he is not left, he is further left. He's willing to do things that help people, which tends to be left-wing policies, like making lunch and breakfast free to kids in school, as Walz did. That is a left-wing policy. Right-wing capitalist policy would be, hey, you have to pay for your food. Let's get that straight before we go any further. The Democratic ticket offers vagueness, corporate ties, and now laudable prairie populism. What will the agenda actually be? Minnesota Democrat Governor Tim Walz is a magnet for internet comparisons, memes, and cliches. He's a Midwestern dad you always wanted. He's Friday Night Lights Coach Taylor. He's a fount of avuncular normal guy aphorisms, as discussed on the most recent episode of Lever Time. But to me, Tim Walz is an archetype I first encountered 20 years ago at an eerily similar political fork in the Democrats' road. His vice presidential nomination this week once again offers a glimmer of hope for a new path, even amid warning signs that the party will take the old path. Which, of course, is the centrist, corporatist, capitalist bullshit. Part of the problem with the Democrats is since the late 80s, they have tried to move to the right because they believe that, oh, if we move further right, people will like us. No, because the Republicans went further right, fucktards. It's time you go back to the left. People think, oh, because they're Democrats, they must be left. No, they're centrist. There is no actual left party. I mean, there's libertarians and Greens. Libertarians actually have some traces of left-wing policy. That's why you often see in the political compass tests left, right, authoritarian, libertarian. Because libertarian has some right-wing and some left-wing policies. The Greens would be far left. They would be our left party, but of course, both Libertarian and Greens are always cheated out of any opportunities by the two big parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. And thus, the most populist first world democracy ends up always having to choose between two fucking parties, which is not how the country is. There is not only two ideologies. But, whatever. Let's continue on here. In 2004, I helped elect that era's version of Tim Walz to the governorship of deep red Montana. Save for the military service, Brian Schweitzer was all the adjectives now used to describe Walz. Small town, blunt, plain spoken, pragmatic. In an election year where Democrats get destroyed up and down the ballot, Schweitzer pulled off, or that's Schweitzer, pulled off his seemingly impossible victory by being decidedly populist and normal. Read, not weird. As I suggested in the American Prospect and the Washington Monthly after the 2004 election, Schweitzer's cultural signaling gave him wide room to campaign on economic populism, which he brought into the governor's office. At the time, I thought Schweitzer could be the beginning of a new era of revived prairie populism that had been championed by Democrats like Byron Dorgan, Dave Obey, Andy Jacobs, Cecil Andrus, and Paul Wellstone. But that's not how things turned out. Schweitzer ended up being an anomaly. His politics clashed with the ascendant Obama-branded neoliberalism of the post-Bush era, and his Montana success proved to be more like a last gasp of prairie populism rather than a revival of it. Obamaism's mix of identity politics, corporatism, and good vibes won out, and the party became more urban, more coastal, and less populist, while losing lots of elections in the heartland. Yeah, it didn't begin with Obama, but he kind of sealed it. The push from a moderately left wing to this corporate centrist bullshit. As I said, it began early 90s, late 80s under George H.W. Bush, the first Bush, because the Democrats lost horribly when Carter ran for a second term, because the country was suffering. It was struggling mightily. And, of course, here pushes in Reagan and all the bullshit that came with him. Trickle down, that shit. The fucking one of, I'm still anti-communism, even though the actual communism itself is dying and anybody can fucking see it, but I'm still going to use it as a talking point, and I do it to start wars. Reagan was a complete and utter mess for this country. But it's because we struggled under Carter. This made the Democrats suddenly fear, because Reagan got this huge popular bump when wealth expanded mightily under him. Because, unfortunately, what it is the rich got richer. It looked like the country itself was just growing mightily. No. It was the rich getting richer. But yeah. So the Democrats, they were scared. And then, so not only does Reagan mop the floor with Carter. He gets popular, wins a second term, and even helps push forward the first George Bush into office. And they're like, we have to do something. And so their idea was what? Move to the center. Abandon any idea of being semi-left and populist to being centrist corporate hacks. That, of course, started under Clinton's regime. Clinton would barely win over Bush, and it was mainly down to the fact that Ross Perot, the third party candidate, the last third party candidate to make any actual impact, stole enough votes that Clinton could win and not have the majority of the votes out there. He just had a plurality, which means he had the most. He didn't have over half of them, which is a majority, which is what we usually look at. No, he won with a plurality, just the most, because he didn't hit halfway. Ross Perot really changed the dynamic of that race. But since then, we've had the centrist, corporatist Democrats, and since that moment, the Republicans have been moving rightward and getting more extreme. So that's where we are in the political landscape. We get Clinton, 2 terms, George W. Bush, 2 terms, Obama, 2 terms. Over that period, the right wing goes further right, gets more extreme, more dangerous. And all the meanwhile, the Democrats act like, we're centrist. Why don't you like us? We're right here in the middle. Motherfucker, you're corporate centrist. You're not even... If you would go left and do things to help the people instead of corporations, instead of being centrist shits, you might actually start stomping a mud hole in the fucking Republican Party and the right wing and the fascist element within it. But no, you're determined to try to make them love you, and they won't. They just won't. God damn fucking morons. This is why I say, Democrats, feckless, pathetic. Republicans, fuck you. We can do things to help you, but we're just gonna fuck you in the ear. So yeah. And that's where we are in American politics. But let's get back to the story. Fast forward 2 decades, and Walz cuts a similar profile as Schweitzer once did, and now on a bigger stage. In the in the election cycle after Schweitzer's first victory, Walz ran for Congress, mixing cultural signaling as a gun-owning hunter with economic populism to win a Republican-leaning district. Later, as governor, he and his Democratic-controlled legislature enacted the Minnesota Miracle, a laudable record of light social democracy. As Walz described it in the Wellstone-esque terms, one person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. Exactly. You're doing things to help those in need, to help others. Again, I have to tell a story here. It kind of ties to this. I live in a very rural area here in the Appalachians. We often look to grow a garden, grow beans, corn, tomatoes, squash, what have you, what we can, and, offer it to others. We eat out of it, but, if we have extras here, as does my uncle. He lives just a few houses away, and he grows his own plants and often brings us cucumbers and tomatoes and stuff. But to start that garden, the last couple years, there's been a guy who owns a tractor. He comes down and he will use the tractor to plow rows into the soil, to turn the soil, to plow it up. And he just does it, hey, it's who I am. He offers it as part of his Christianity. But again, it's that neighborliness. He don't want any pay. He's like, hey, just pass it along, help others. So that's kind of the way things work. And yeah, that is the same idea here as Walz. You help the students, help the children, make things much easier for them in school instead of having to have money to pay for food. They aren't charged for lunch or breakfast, because it should be part of the responsibility of a neighborhood to make sure the children are fed. And in this instance, the school. So you can look at it as a large neighborhood taking care of each other. And yeah, that is Tim Walz from what I can see. Unlike many of his peers, Walz seems to understand the perils of Democrats' technocratic politics and obsession with making everything complex and annoying. When the New York Times' Ezra Klein recently asked the Minnesota governor why he rejected Democrats' obsession with means testing and made a school breakfast and lunch program universal, Walz reprised one of the best answers I've ever heard. He suggested that means testing creates cultural boundaries between haves and have-nots, buries people in paperwork, and ends up becoming very cumbersome or becomes inoperable. Sometimes you just need to do what needs to be done because it's the best for everyone. Don't sit there and think too hard and long about it. Walz concluded that same interview by declaring that if Democrats win in 2024, their first policy priority should be giving all Americans paid family and medical leave. Absolutely. A wildly popular idea, even among Republicans. Amen to that. Yeah, we're a first world country, but among our first world peers, Germany, the UK, Japan, we're the only one that don't offer fucking family leave and medical leave when a woman gives birth to a child, when workers are ill. This should be goddamn common sense, but we don't do it. Why? Why? It's popular to everyone. It makes goddamn sense. But why? Because the corporate stupidity that controls both fucking parties. There are so many fucking things you could do to just stop a mud hole in your opponent. If you just do things for the people. God damn it, ain't that fucking hard to understand. But motherfuckers, I don't get it. Why? You think the donors are that fucking special? The donors go fucking vote. The donors get one goddamn fucking vote, motherfucker. I don't give a shit that they can give you these fucking millions of dollars. The average people are the ones that can push you into office. But no. Fucking stupid fucks. All of this from Walz is encouraging, as is him being rewarded with the VP nomination. The excitement around his elevation has led some pundits to infer Kamala Harris will be the populist president Obama refused to be. She won't. And some media outlets to insist that Walz proves that Democrats will champion a care economy, a fancy new term for the very old idea of a more robust social safety net. While I'd like to think that's an inevitability, the rhetoric seems like wish casting. Or at least premature. Why? Because Walz is the running mate of Kamala Harris, who has a squishy record on economic issues, has declined to outline a clear economic vision, and has surrounded herself with her party's corporate-friendly crowd. You know, this is one thing. I put out a video a couple weeks ago. Corporations fear Lena Khan, I think was the name of it. Lena Khan is one of the few really fucking wonderful bright spots that was under the Biden presidency. But under Kamala Harris, I'm afraid she might be doomed, because these big fucking money donors are offering her millions to kick Khan out of her position, because they know Khan keeps them in fucking line. And that's why I've already said, no, she's not going to be this great reformer that Obama could have been, but was not. All in all, Obama was very as a president. He was a status quo, keep the bullshit flowing. I mean, let's be honest with it. Trump wasn't any better. He made fucking things worse. He expanded drone strikes. He made fucking threats that pushed us close to goddamn more war. He fucking drone struck and killed the Iranian commander who was actually fighting ISIS. But goddamn, every one of his sycophants are like, let's suck your cock, Daddy Trump. Stupid fucks. They're just fucking cold of Trump to be cold of Trump because they're goddamn fucking morons. They're stupid as shit. Do I have a throbbing vein yet? Anyway, Harris has so far run a solid electoral campaign as a capable generic Democrat, but the donor class seems to see an opportunity. Some Democratic billionaires feel emboldened to demand her retreat from the most successful populist politics of the Biden administration. Indeed, reporting in the business press shows that corporate titans see Walz's nomination merely as a rhetorical and aesthetic sop to the party's base, but not a signal of Harris's commitment to adopting Walzonomics, or even the strongest parts of the Biden-Harris economic agenda. Maryland's Democratic Governor Wes Moore said as much out loud, using a CNBC appearance to insinuate that Harris may break with that agenda in order to better serve our large industries. Was Moore speaking on Harris's behalf? Does he know something that Harris has declined to share with the public herself? Wondered the New Yorker's J. Caspian King. Harris has not explained why she has changed her mind on fracking, which she once said would be banned, but has wobbled on Medicare for All, which she once supported, or what she plans to do with Lena Khan. Yep. The head of the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC. The press, it seems, will have to persist in the thankless task of demanding answers, even if we risk disrupting the good times. The risk goes beyond just messing with the vibes. For smaller media outlets like The Lever, daring to ask about Harris's policy agenda risks financial punishment from the big chunk of the public that no longer believes journalism is about holding truth or seeking truth or holding power to account. As the Atlantic writer and recent Levertime guest Tyler Austin Harper put it. Instead, they see the media as a kind of jack-in-the-box that was supposed to pop up and say, Trump is bad, over and over like a kid who wants to be read the same bedtime story over every night and throws a fit if you pull a different book off the shelf. Yeah. I see Trump for the evil fuck he is. I know Trump is an evil fuck. But I understand why some people would be willing to follow him. Because, let's get this straight. Even with what Trump has done, people see him as a better option if they see nothing but the evils that Biden and Harris are shown to have committed. Which is unfortunately part of this propaganda news bullshit. That is the fault of groups like MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, the corporate networks, NBC, CBS, ABC. And then you can't forget One America News, fucking Newsmax, Right Side Broadcast Network, Breitbart, all of them. All of them. Daily Wire, that shit. All of them are responsible for the bullshit. For the lack of trust America has. And again, part of it can be traced back to Reagan as his FCC, Federal Communications Commission, tore apart the Truman Doctrine bit by bit, taking it to Supreme Court because the Truman Doctrine said the news organizations must tell the truth to the best of their ability. It pushed as much as it could because it was an executive action. It wasn't a law, but it held enough sway that they felt the need to take it to court and rip it apart bit by bit by bit. And again, you can thank Reagan, the bastard. Because Harris has not outlined a clear legislative agenda. I don't know where she will end up on policy. She has a history of airing compelling populist economic rhetoric, some of which she's now echoing on the campaign, but also a history of retreating or soft pedaling in the face of pressure. Our team at the Lever is certainly doing our part to try to find out what her actual agenda will be, while also aggressively covering the Trump Vance ticket. That's the way you should do it. But I'm not sure anyone will ever get clear answers. In a political environment where even asking questions is equated with disloyalty. So yeah. It's ridiculous. As I was going to say earlier, I know why people would vote for Trump. Because if you look back at the past, you got to question, how did someone like Hitler come to power? How did that happen? Could they not see the evil he was committing? Yeah, but he gave those struggling just with everyday life something to hope for and something to blame, because Germany was struggling. Heavy sanctions were placed on them following the First World War, and it made it something they struggled greatly with to try to get out from underneath. Hitler arose at a moment and said, look, it's these Jews, these gypsies, they're to blame. The communists, the socialists, they're to blame. The hard-working German deserves better. Yeah. What did Trump do when he came in? Oh, the communists, the socialists. They're trying to infiltrate society. These foreigners from the shithole countries. The invasion that comes across the border. Very, very, very fucking similar rhetoric. So yeah. If yeah, if you ever wonder why people would vote for a Trump, you just look back at history. You see connections. That said, I am sure that my feelings this week of deja vu aren't delusions or doomerism. Watching so many observers projecting so much onto Walz' nomination reminds me of 2004, when I thought Schweitzer's victory could be a sign of left of center populism or populist future to come, but that it became more like a last blast from a populist past as neoliberalism took over. In this new era, I'd love to assume Walz's admirable prairie populism will become mainstream democratic politics. But perhaps it will. Maybe the first thing a Harris-Walz administration does is act on Walz's own stated top priority and push for a national paid family leave bill. But I'm not in my idealistic 20s anymore. I'm in my realistic 40s, which means I can remember what happened the last time I dared to hope for such outcomes. I'm now old enough to know the old fool me once lesson, and there will be only the real policy change if enough people demand it, rather than assume everything will happen just because the vibes happen to be positive right now. 2024 may be the ultimate vibes election, and sure, good vibes are good, but good policy would be a lot better. Just listen to the Minnesota coach turned governor's plain spoken talk about school lunches and paid sick leave. I'm guessing he'd agree. So yeah. Kamala Harris, very the same shit. Very corporate centrist bullshit. Walz, I like what he does. I like his attitude, the things he's done to help people. That's what I want to see. But the problem is, vice president's one of those positions that it's hard to really push anything forward. It's the participation trophy of elections is what it is. Because originally the way presidents were elected, everybody would run, and then based on the way the votes went, the most got president, the second most got vice president, and often you could have clashing personalities. That changed quickly because the founding fathers are like, yeah, that's not going to work very well. So I think it was around Jefferson's election, they amended that to where the candidate picks a running mate that will become their vice president. And so yeah, it's kind of the participation trophy, if you will. And a lot of the times they don't have the kind of impact or push you would like them to have. Honestly, I would prefer it to be Walz be the presidential nominee. You could put Harris on as a VP, running mate. But I want somebody who will bring our country from the depths of the right wing lunacy and pull us back to the center by bringing in more left wing policies. Because America's equilibrium, it has went from center to the right heavily. And so people think the center is left. It's not. It's not. I guess you could just say the Overton window. Our Overton window in America has went from center to right. And so a lot of people see the center as the left. They're not. And there's a lot of fear mongering the far right does. Look at the evil acts committed under McCarthy's Red Scare hearings. So many lives were destroyed, careers decimated, because they would be blacklisted for being either communist or accused of being communist. It's time we drag our country back and reset its ideation. I make no qualms about being on the left. I'm not a Democrat. I am on the left. I believe that things should be done to help the average person, to make life easier. We should own the wealth of what we create. No person should be treated as a lesser because they're not wealthy. No human should be left to live in squalor because they're poor. But yeah. Treat people well. You may end up one day needing help from them. But instead, we're in an era of corporate greed, oozing filth and monsterism. Neoliberalism is one of the worst fucking things to happen. This idea of feed corporations because their wealth will trickle down. That's not going to happen. Trickle down economics is one of the biggest fucking bullshit beliefs out there. There must be regulations on corporations. When your goal is just to make money, yeah, you can't be trusted to do the right thing. That's just fact. But yeah, this has already hit 48 minutes, so we'll end this episode here. But yeah, I want Walz to have a huge impact, but I'm just honestly feel that it's like trying to throw a bone out to the left and say, look, see this guy? We're making him our running mate. This is the kind of person you like, ain't it? Here's your bone. Now vote for us, lackeys. Anyway. Yeah. As always, educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll be putting this article in the description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.